Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because I'm here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
I'm Julie Hyde-Mute.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Fans and followers of the show will know we're part of the Creatives Group, the private network for creative individuals across the globe. Together, we help you create at your best, connect you with like-minded individuals, therefore helping you grow your creative practice and your creative business. If that sounds like a good idea to you and you'd like to find out more about joining the growing network of creative professionals, please don't hesitate to reach out to us after the show. But this is On the Couch with Creatives. So, Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
Today on the couch, we have Jodie Newman, who is a business creative strategist. She helps small businesses to grow creatively, to solve their business problems and challenges creatively. She says fresh, new perspectives, build momentum, and tapping into a team's creativity is a fantastic and fun way to grow a business. Jodie's own business is called the Business Allotment. So let's get her on the couch and hear all about it. Hi, Jodie. Welcome to On the Couch with Creative.
Thank you. Great to be here. Hi, Julie. Hi, Melanie.
Now, Jodie is a creative member. And as I told you earlier, she's a business creative strategist. So let's find out what that is all about. So, Jodie, your company is called the Business Allotment. So in simple terms, what is it all about? What do you do?
Okay, so the Business Allotment helps business owners grow their business creatively. So I built the allotment on a foundational belief that great ideas grow business, and creativity has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. And I kind of deploy that creativity into small businesses so that they can think differently about how they run and grow their business, because creativity, I think, is one of the biggest levers you can pull to create that forward momentum, to create your difference, to stand out from other people, and to bloody enjoy the ride along the way as well.
So where did the idea of the business allotment, because it's very sort of garden themed, your business, how did that all start?
Well, I actually rebranded. I've been running my business for 20 years. And it took a bit of a transformation about sort of 9 or 10 years in. And I wanted to come up with a brand that really kind of was the essence of what I did. And using some of my tools on myself, I kind of dug down to the inherent truth of what I did, which was this belief that great ideas grow businesses. And once I'd got onto that kind of growth idea, it all just fell into place. And I loved that analogy of planting seeds and that whole thing. I'm never ashamed of strangling a metaphor within an inch of its life for a good marketing line. And that's how it all came about. And then the really boring stuff like, is the website, domain available? And unbelievably it was. And that was it. That's when I rebranded and everything became under the umbrella of the Business Allotment.
I just love your metaphors. The tool shed, the cultivars. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's ripe for picking. I'm sorry. I mean, once I get started, there's literally no stopping me.
No, I love it. I love it. It really does work, and all the metaphors do just seamlessly kind of go together, don't they? So it was a marvelous idea. And talking about ideas for business, is it just small businesses that you deal with, or bigger businesses as well?
No, I tend to the majority of my client base and the allotment crowd is small businesses. I love working with small businesses because you are working directly into the owner or the owners. They have bought into the allotment concept, otherwise they would never walk through the gate. So they are pleased to be in the allotment and they are ready to embrace the kind of the allotment thinking. With bigger businesses, you are slightly at the kind of behest of whoever's your stakeholder. not everyone in the room might be fans. It's a harder job. I mean, I remember running not that long ago a strategy day with 13 board members of a business, and everyone would just look at the CEO before they answered, which in terms of creativity is probably the worst environment to be in. And then I was co-running the day with my husband, and that business owner would then answer my husband. He was a man talking to a man. I mean, I was just there to hold the flip chart pens, maybe. So, some of the environments you work with the big businesses aren't really conducive to what I do. So when I do work with bigger businesses, obviously I make sure that I can have a positive impact. And it needs to be a culture that embraces or is willing to embrace creativity. They might not have really, I mean, a lot of the bigger businesses I work with have never done what I'm asking them to do. But I've sat in a room full of solicitors with Play-Doh, and they have all stayed in the room, got involved, and we all came up with some brilliant ways to solve their challenge. So you just need that openness. So that's not every culture, but size is irrelevant if you've got the right approach and the right curiosity levels.
Yeah, and that you're allowed to speak,
that helps.
Allowed to speak and allowed to listen to your employees' ideas, because that's another, say, a big barrier in corporate culture is, you've got the top man who dictates this is how it's going to be, and you all have this line of thinking, and we don't go outside that little box because that's what we do. Whereas actually, I always felt, even within Disney that I used to work for, I often felt actually if you really just went outside of that a little bit, you could probably come up with something great. You're great now, but you could be stratospheric if you just opened it up a little bit.
It's so true, because I think we are, when you get into, I mean, I worked in the agency environment for a decade, and obviously there's a creative department, and these people are highly trained, they're highly skilled at executing the briefs and coming up with those ideas. The one I worked with a while, I was outside of the creative department. I introduced a creative thinking format where people would get together, and I would make sure within the group of sort of 8 to 10 people sitting in that idea generation session, at least 2 of them were outside of the creative department. In fact, we had the security guard come in who gave an idea that was the idea that ended up winning that agency, a high street retailer, in a pitch environment, because we all can think creatively given the opportunity. And I don't, when I've been in and run idea generation sessions, it's not uncommon that someone who's been sort of told to come along sort of goes very apologetically, I'm not really creative, so I might sit this out. I'm like, you're coming right in the middle, you're getting involved. And they always come up with ideas, because creativity is a skill. There is no one would imagine picking up a tennis racket or sitting down at a piano and kind of knocking out a sonata or a brilliant ace or a fantastic backhand. It's training, it's practice. Not everyone is going to reach the dizzy heights of amazing creativity or kind of Wimbledon winning tennis player, but you can get better at it. And being in an environment where you can practice and speak stupid stuff out loud and be still, considered that's okay, that's all part of it.
There's a marvelous story, actually. Have you heard the story of how they create them? The compare the market, the meerkats.
Right.
Came about, and again, that wasn't anybody who was on the marketing team. It was one of the office guys who sort of come in on his bike and just made an off the cuff comment, sort of going past the office. Oh, doesn't compare the market sound like meerkat?
Fantastic.
And then that kind of took a hold. Then people, what the hell are we going to do with meerkats? What? And then it's like, well, maybe we should have this guy, and he's going to be, God knows, as they said, it's sort of an African animal with a Russian accent. There's going to be a whole backstory behind there, in this robe and very posh, and how it all kicked off. Alexander was saying, "Don't come to my website. I'm Compare the Meerkat. Go to Compare the Market. That's what you want." And that's how it kind of it started, and then it has compare the market, Meerkat, has turned into a massive global brand, with them releasing a best-selling book written by Alexander that outstripped Tony Blair's biography on the Times book bestseller list one Christmas. And also they became the biggest producer of soft toys over and above Disney, would you believe, with their Meerkat toys that everyone was going mental for. I mean, they built a huge brand off that tiny little cat.
But isn't that interesting? Because I think those kind of that bonkersness of, oh, it sounds like Meerkat, you know, those kind of little comments, they will die in the dust if there's no creative curiosity, because somebody heard that and went, what if? And that's all it takes. I was writing a LinkedIn post this morning about a new tool that I was talking about in terms of helping people be creative. And it's, you know, and I think we don't help ourselves solving challenges in businesses. So we might be saying, how do we communicate with our customers, or how do we send a newsletter out to our customers? Don't start there. The piece of creative work to do is to get that kind of funny thing, sounds like a meerkat, then start thinking about how it could work, you know. So I was saying, you know, rather than say, oh, how do we send a newsletter out? What should our newsletter be? You know, do a bit of creative thinking on it. And the challenge becomes, how do we whisper secrets? Or how do we, you know, send a pigeon? And that unleashes a creative train of thought. Staring at the words create a newsletter is creative death for everybody, you know. And I think it is about having the curiosity to go, well, that's ridiculous. And once you have that thought, you know you're standing on the threshold of a new creative path. But most people go, that's ridiculous, put it in the bin, move back to a really tedious way of coming up with a solution.
You know, when you were talking, Jodie, about the corporate atmosphere that you said can sometimes be stultifying, the image flashed through my mind of a walled garden. So, you know, as opposed to an allotment that can grow freely if you let it, how do you bash those walls down when you take on a client? How do you tap into a company's creativity, or you spark creativity within a team? How do you do that? How do you start?
Well, I usually go in and work specifically on a business challenge. I mean, sometimes I do go in and, you know, with the brief, make this team more creative, which I certainly can do. And that would be about getting to understand how creativity can flourish, and then giving them a whole load of skills and tools that they'll practice with me and then go off and use and utilize in their kind of working day. More often than not, I'm working on a specific challenge, whether that is something very, very specific, like I've worked on all sorts in my time, launching a new division for ITN, or I used to go in to Dorothy Perkins every quarter. What's the big in-store idea? And for me, there is this slight creative myth that to come up with ideas, you need to be kind of puffing on a gauloise, sat in a kind of wooden chair in a little garret on the top of a hill, staring at the clouds. I mean, that's a one way, but who has time for that? And we all know smoking's bad for you. So, and vapes just aren't sexy. So the other way to do it is to have a massive toolkit of creative approaches. And I will always take a team or a group through some creative warm-ups, because again, you know, you want to kind of limber up before you get into it. And our heads are running a million different agendas and lists and processes, and really we need to kind of start tapping into the other bit of our brain that's lying dormant there, just ready to be creative on our behalf. So I'll do some creative warm-ups, so something that doesn't challenge you to think of ideas, you're just exploring creativity as a kind of a practical notion. And then we will explore the challenge, and then I will keep introducing different ways of thinking about it, because creativity boils down to different perspectives. I mean, when I'm talking about businesses, as a business owner, we know our businesses inside out, and that is a fantastic viewpoint to run your business day to day. Inside out is a terrible creative perspective. Outside in is where you need to get to. So that's my job in the allotment, is to take business owners out of their business and look at it from a different perspective. And I hear more often than any other comment, oh, I've never seen my business like that before, because you are taking them on this kind of virtual journey out of their business to a different perspective. But you can use lots of creative tools to help you do that. And that's the sort of thing I will do with teams. And I use a thing called brand swap. So, you know, you're looking at a business challenge. Well, how would innocent smoothies solve that problem? Immediately, you are out of your own way. So you've got a clear path to some fresh thinking. Or I'll often use what I call job jump. Or how would a postman solve that problem? And if you are in a curious, open, divergent frame of mind where you're looking at options, you're not trying to nail down a solution, then those kind of creative prompts and tools will just help the team start. And once one person is verbalizing ideas, this kind of collaborative effect will happen naturally, and you know, people will build on other people's ideas, and that idea will spark this idea, and then you know, you'll get on that roll. And it's just about, you know, encouraging that part of the brain to be accessed in an environment where no one is going to laugh when you say, it sounds like meerkat.
It's true, and I love that, and I think it's a great way of doing it, Jodie, because sometimes and I suffer from this, I'm a creative, but I do suffer from this, is when you're too close in to something, and I imagine small business owners suffer with this quite a lot. When you're so close to something, it can be quite difficult to generate, because you're so in the zone of whatever that thing is. To step outside of it and get a fresh perspective will then bring you back to that place where, you know, like you say, where you want to be. But sometimes it's like you can't see the wood for the trees because you're so thick in the forest. It's just like, I don't even know where to go now, because it's, you know, stuff.
Absolutely that. Yes, I sometimes say it's like, you know, it's kind of, we have a very myopic view, and we see all that kind of granular detail, and that, you know, allows us to do what we need to do day to day. But you've got to step out. And when I work strategically with people, you know, I will often, if I'm doing it in the room, I will do it big. You know, we'll have marker pens and big post-its and walls with big bits of paper on, because you've got to be 3 foot away to see the whole thing. You know, up close is great, but you just can't see patterns, you can't see where it all fits together, you can't see the future, you know. So you know, having a kind of physical relationship to your business strategy is super important, because that will allow you to get that creative perspective to step back. And you know, things happen when you step back.
But you've got two sides of a coin here. You know, you've got the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then, of course, you've got the other side where it could be total stagnation.
Yeah. And I think having that, you know, I sort of come back to this notion of curiosity of your own business. If you're a business owner, saying, you know, why do I do it like this? How could I do it better? The two most powerful questions, I think, when you're trying to build that momentum. And also, you know, as much as we like to think our business is special and unique, and you know, people will see that, the vision that people get of our business from the outside is very different. They don't see us in exclusion of anything else. They see us in an industry of other people ostensibly offering the same thing. So it's a question of understanding how your audience perceives you in context of the people around you who are also selling the same kind of wares, and understanding how you create difference. Because however wed you are to your brand story or the way you do things, if it's the same as everyone else, you are putting a big onus on your audience to pick through why they should choose you. That's the only question in their heads. Why should I choose you? Why should I come to your network, not your network? Why should I come to your allotment, not somebody else's, you know, kind of business support group? If you don't give them the answers really clearly and distinctly, and put sort of fresh air between your answer and everyone else's answer, how the hell are they going to choose you? It will come down to luck, or you know, somebody else is having a clearer, more compelling story, which is why I do a lot of brand story work with small businesses, because you need that distinctness. And say, you might love your brand story, but you know, and it might be unique, but 5 years down the line, it suddenly isn't unique. And then you've really got to evolve what you're saying, because you're not doing yourself any favors as a business if you are just, and I think this goes to down into the smallest of details. I was talking to somebody the other day who runs discovery calls, and they're super common discovery calls with brand designers, business coaches, personal coaches. Why would you call, if you're designing your process, why would you call your getting to know your client a discovery call? Because there's nothing distinct about that, and that's part of your story, your process. So design a process that says from the very outset, look, even the language I use is different, and that all keys back into your brand and your story, so it's all of a piece, and you'll be remembered, because brand is only about memory. Our heads are full of ridiculous songs from our childhood, because that's branding. Stick in there. You've got to create those hooks to get your audience to remember you. Because whenever you're pitching your business, say in networking, we all like to think we're in a selling mode, everyone else is in a buying mode. That's not what happens. We're all in a selling mode. So no one is ready to buy in that Zoom room or in that, tedious beige boardroom that you go networking in. So you need to give them a nugget of story they take with them in their head, and it takes up a little bit of space in there. So the minute they are ready to buy your service, you're front of their mind. That's your job as a business owner, to get that nugget of story slotted into someone's cranium.
Yeah. And I love that you're talking about songs in our heads. And I think that was really what was so wonderful about the golden age of advertising in the kind of 80s, 90s, where you had like every advert had either a really strong jingle, like the shake and vac,
yes,
Gillette, the best a man can get, all of these things that, as soon as I say it, you're hearing it. Coca-Cola, all of the things that you say it and you hear it immediately in your head, or it calls to mind a vision. I was watching a program a little while ago, and they said that the products, especially like shake and vac and mash get smashed, like actually bloody awful products, but they sold in droves because the advertising was so powerful. So it just makes you think, the smash aliens, who would think of aliens with mashed potato, really, and housework being fun. I mean, God, I hate it, but
I think a lot of businesses also fall into the thinking that if you are business to business, if you're selling a service to other businesses, you can't have fun, you can't be memorable. It's the business to consumer that gets all the good luck, because they can have the silly jingles and the funny characters. But for me, especially with small businesses, you are a small business, but you are a human selling to another human who happens to be a business owner. So all bets are off. You can make that as characterful, as jingleful, as, memorable as any brand can make it. And it's not predicated on budget or anything else. It's about understanding your brand and what it stands for, and going all out to be the most potent version of that brand and what it stands for to your audience, regardless of whether you're selling software or voiceover or, advice and creative thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're a member of Creatives, Jodie, because there's so many people within our networking group that can really use your expertise and your knowledge and your tools from your toolbox.
That's right. Everyone's welcome in the tool shed.
Yes, and she shares her tools with us often. We often call on Jodie every time we have a creatives meetup. We do a creatives warm-up exercise at the start of every meeting, and it's not always Jodie. Our members get to showcase their stuff. Sometimes I'll lead it, but I do always come back to Jodie because she's so brilliant. And Jodie, would you mind doing the creative warm-up? So if you want to meet Jodie, come on one of our events, because she will more often than not be leading our creative warm-up, and she's absolutely fabulous. And do sign up to her newsletter as well. The details will be going across the screen right now, because again, the way Jodie words her emails in her newsletters and on her subscription list, she has me in stitches, and I'm like, yes, that's so brilliant, I'm going to do that. It's just amazing. So it gives you something to think about. Are you churning out a bland, boring, run-of-the-mill newsletter, or action items or whatever, or are you really putting it in your language that speaks to your brand? Do check it out.
Thank you.
And how else can people get hold of you, Jodie, if they're interested in tapping into your expertise?
So I run the business sheds, which are all lined up neatly at the bottom of the allotment, and that's our online growth club that happens monthly. Small business owners, small group of business owners. And every quarter I do a visitor shed. So I open the door and invite people in, business owners in, to come and spend an hour working creatively on their business with a couple of my favorite allotment tools. Fresh ideas are guaranteed in the hour. It's not a hard sell. People just come in to the visitor shed, settle down, and I take them through these two tools, and you get time to focus on your business and work creatively. So that happens once a quarter. So you can check out my website. The tickets are in the shop. It'll tell you when the next one is. I've got one early October, and then it'll be kind of January. So yeah, that's a free seat for anyone who wants to come and dip their toe into the allotment. Or there's the tool shed, which is open 24/7. That's the shed that never sleeps. That's on my website. You can go and download as many of the tools there as you wish. And as Melanie said, also the tool rack, which is my monthly missive. And alongside the tool rack, you'll get 2 creative hooks a month just to help you be a better creative business owner.
Brilliant. I love them. I live for those. It's not often I say I live for a newsletter.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously, I really enjoy them pinging into my inbox. And that's what you want. You don't want somebody to newsletter, oh, delete, or scroll, I'll read that later, and then don't bother. Yours is one of the very, very few that I open up straight away, and I'm like, oh, I love it.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. Lovely to hear.
What 3 top tips can you give us? Start off with, what tips would you give businesses when it comes to creative thinking?
So I think, just in a very general sense, first tip is use the power of creativity to build your business differently. Because I think as a small business, that we are all working on limited time, limited resources, limited budget. And I think if you can get a bit of creativity into your business, get creative eyes on everything that you do, and just question, why do I do it like that? How can we do it differently? What would that give us? And I think that's a really good place to start, because assumption fills our businesses wall to wall. We go, all right, okay, I need to do a newsletter because everyone keeps telling me I need to communicate with my customers. So okay, what's everyone else doing? Right, so I'll do it monthly. I'll fill it with news. It's like we jump to all these assumptive thoughts and execute on the basis of that. And what I encourage people in the allotment to do is start way back from there and dig out the assumption. So we assume a newsletter has to have words in it. Okay, I mean, I'm amazed at how many graphic and visual people send out a newsletter filled with words. Why is it not a graphic novel? Why is it not a cartoon? Why is it not something visual? So I think it's all these things where you just strip back, and that's, kind of, I think, where if you have a creative approach, you're onto a winner, because you're starting from a much more interesting place that will allow creativity to flourish much quicker than creating these weird rules like, well, a newsletter has to be on the email, or it has to be every month, or it has to be this, or it has to be that. That's where you get the grey newsletter that you go, maybe I'll read that, and then it drops like a stone to the bottom of your inbox to join all the other things from Sports Direct and Pinterest that you also think, I must get around to opening that. So that's my first tip, really, is just deploy creativity into the smallest and the biggest challenges that you have, and question why you do things in the way you do them. Ready for the second tip?
Something else?
I will go back to, and this is particularly pertinent for small businesses, create a brilliant brand story. It will be your most valuable asset and your most powerful marketing tool. And when people come in, they go, well, I want to launch this thing, or work on this, I'll go back to the brand story with them, because that will inform everything. Because if you want to design an amazing onboarding system, you need to know what your brand stands for in order to design a system that speaks volumes about your business. So, my 2 brand watchwords or touchstones in my business are creativity and practicality, because one without the other for me doesn't work. But every business needs to have these promises they keep with their clients. They need to have the values by which they always live by. Those things should be informing everything that you do in business. Otherwise, you are nabbing ideas out of the ether. Oh, onboarding. All right. Well, I saw that on, LinkedIn. I'll grab that idea and I'll shoehorn it in with that thing. And clients don't get a sense. When I design onboarding, which weirdly has happened a lot recently with clients, we start with the emotion we're trying to provoke in the client, and then we couple that with the brand and what you're trying to represent, and then we create the process out of that. That will create a process unique to you. So it's really powerful to get that story, really understand what your brand stands for, and create those touchstones that you communicate at every level. And, you spend time looking at every touch point, every single time your audience interacts with you, and ask yourself, how can I bring a little nugget of brand potency to that interaction? I have a touch point that's so small, it's taken 10 years for someone to notice it. Someone emailed me last week and went, I've just noticed this thing. I'm like, well done, you get the prize, because I've been doing that for 10 years because I find it funny. And, because every single element of what I put out, I try and make it as allotment potent as possible. And that's what wins you the fans. So that would be my second thing. Brand story. Get yourself a brand story that's amazing and is different.
And for people like you, people who coach other people, do you have any tips for them?
Well, it's difficult because everyone will have very much their own style. But I think for me, being a business owner and building a business is serious work, but you don't always have to be serious. And I think for me, if you have that element of your own or your brand personality, whether it's irreverence, quirkiness, however you want to say it, maverickness, you got to bring that to the fore and make that process part of what you do with your clients. So my sessions always have laughter in them, because for me, why would you make it serious? Because you don't have to doing work on your business. And also, that is the best state for creativity. So laughter is incredibly important for what I do. But that's not for everyone. Some people love deep, meaningful chin scratching, and they don't, laughter's not part of what they do. But for me, it's the best state to get people open and curious. And that laughter state does something wonderful to your creative muscles, and then you're away.
Yeah, it puts you in flow. When you're laughing and you're happy, you're raising your energy and your vibrations out to the world, and it puts you in flow. When you're miserable, you are not in the best state for anything. So I would argue with the chin scratchers and say, actually, you're not really in the best place that you can be to actually achieve what you want. Get out and go live a little. Go and have a burger. And possibly a gin.
That's put it on a t-shirt, Melanie. That's your first creatives merch right there. Go and have a burger and possibly a gin.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, now what we're going to do is dive a little bit deeper into your way of thinking, Jodie.
Right.
So we're going to, Melanie's got her values jam card.
Oh, okay. Starting to feel a bit nervous now.
You're going to pick a card which will have a value on it, and then she will get you to talk about that value. But there's no right or wrong answer. Just say whatever comes into your head, even if it sounds absolutely nonsensical. And I don't know why I should be teaching grandmother to suck eggs here, because that's the way you think all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
This will be the first time I have zero to say. Let's see what happens.
Oh, you won't. You won't. You'll come up with some magic. I know you will. Okay. So I'm just going to run my finger along the cards, Jodie, and then you just say stop when you want me to pick a card.
I'm going to say stop.
Right, okay, what did we pick? We picked, oh my God, this is just, we always get good cards for our guests, and it's sometimes really uncanny how they pick the card that's appropriate. And I think this is so appropriate for everything we were talking about. Your card is connection with nature. Business allotment, lady.
There we go.
There you go. Get your gum boots on.
Absolutely. Put on your
Yes.
wellies. And so we're going to ask you, obviously, creatively about your connection with nature. So, Jodie, what does connection with nature mean to you personally? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
So it looks like the view from my office. I have a window kind of just there and one that side, and I can look out, and I've got different leaves always in front of me, which kind of framing a longer term view. And I can look out at the clouds, and I can see the trees in the distance, and that is how I look at my connection with nature through the window. Because I always say 5 a day, we all know, is good for your health. 5 minutes staring out the window a day, I mean, absolute minimum, is essential for creativity. And that for me, and it's that kind of looking at the leaves and saying, well, that one's a bit different from that one, and letting your mind just get sucked into that kind of view of nature is brilliant for being able to kind of not think about your challenge, but your subconscious is obviously thinking about your business challenge. And I'm often find myself staring out to the clouds like, oh, look, that looks a bit like a fish with a top hat on, that kind of thing. That's, for me, is what's brilliant about looking at nature, because it's so marvelous. You can't help but go down a little kind of, meander in your mind, which is the perfect state to allow yourself to come up with better ideas.
Brilliant. What does it feel like?
Well, what's sprung to mind is it feels like clay, because I am obsessed with ceramics. I have been doing evening classes for about 2 years, and I am currently in a bit of a jam where I am just creating cactus from clay. And I always like to do creative things outside of my business because it feeds my creativity, it hones it, but it challenges my creativity in a very different way from what I do in the allotment. And so that's what sprung to mind, is that it's, I love doing something that is a physical creative task using a natural material that you can't quite control, particularly not when you're as amateur as I am. And there is massive element of chance involved because you put it in the kiln, and as all ceramicists say, that the kiln god will have its wicked way to open the door and it's in 1,000 pieces. Like, yay! It's all right. I've only just spent 6 weeks on it. It's fine. There's so much that you can do. So I think for me, that's where my mind went. That kind of. But I'm also creating vaguely natural forms, because I'm creating ceramic cactus, although they're getting ever increasingly unnatural, because I'm bringing in kind of industrial elements and weird colors and stuff. So it's for me, that's where I'm at with it at the moment.
Well, you have to show us some. I'd like to see some of the finished articles. What does it sound like?
What does nature sound like? For me, it can sometimes be the white noise you need. If you go for a walk and there's kind of the rustling of the tree. I live near Epping Forest. I mean, I don't go out there as often as I should, but I can kind of take that walk in my mind anytime I like, and the crunch of the twigs underfoot and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is a perfect backdrop for thinking of any sort. And I learned a new word the other day on a podcast, peregrinate, which is now my favorite ever word, which doesn't mean turning yourself into a peregrine falcon. It means going out for a sort of wander. And I think that peregrination of walking in that environment that might have interesting things, but might also let you just kind of visually swing from one thing to another. And that physical movement of your legs and that repetitive, that whole piece is a brilliant state to get into for when you're dealing with stuff. whether it's business or otherwise. So that's kind of, the sound is part of that whole environment where you can shift your mind somewhere different.
And I think it's about giving yourself permission to do those things as well. And I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit, just going back to what we were talking about earlier about pumping out the standard blur for the newsletter. You know, a lot of, especially small business owners, especially if you've come from a corporate environment like myself, and I've fallen into that trap for years and years and years and years and years. I'm still not 100% broken free of it, I'll confess. But your mindset is, you know, you're doing things in a certain way, in a certain order, in a certain tone, and you know, I had a boss who was a bit of a tyrant. You know, you came in, you're at your desk, you didn't move from your desk until you left at such a time, because your job was to be there and it was to do this. And I find getting up and going for a walk, or as you say, just staring something as simple, staring out the window and just letting that creativity go. I feel massively guilty if I stop writing that thing, doing that emails on social media, because I feel I should be doing, rather than giving myself permission to have the space to say, actually, I'm doing a really important part of my job staring out that window.
So true. And I think we are, you know, we kind of bind ourselves up in these ridiculous rules that, you know, if you think back, education chucks out in this country people who, you know, kind of have to think in a certain way to pass a certain exam in a certain way and learn certain things, you know, yawn, all the while your creativity is being more and more diminished and squashed into a box where it's suddenly the ability to draw. Because I say to people, oh, you're creative. Oh no, I can't draw. I'm like, that's the answer to a completely different question. Or you're in a corporate environment where you're also told this is the way we do things. And and you have to have those rules and those processes because everything is a sausage factory and we need to kind of produce the sausages. Great. But I see a lot of business owners come out of that environment of corporate with the rules and not giving themselves permission because they don't know they can have permission to go, you know what, I'm not going to rock up on LinkedIn and be all corporate and stiff and talk about being proactive or solutions or, you know, best fit scenarios. God, yawn. Strip all that out. It's irrelevant. And sometimes you just need someone to give you. I spend half my time in the shed giving business owners permission to do stuff that they weren't sure they were able to do. And who's telling them that? Themselves. It's madness. We all do it though. Yeah. And it's about training yourself out of those assumptive processes and those assumptive ways of thinking. And that's where you can access a more creative way of doing stuff.
Absolutely.
Super. Well, thank you for coming on the couch, Jodie. It's been lovely listening to you, really.
And it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. You know, Jodie, I'm a big fan. I just love hearing you speak, and I get quite excited about it. And as I say, I get quite excited when I see your newsletter. And if you follow Jodie and book onto her business allotment, you'll get excited as well. If you need to have more creativity in your life, do go and follow Jodie. Do sign up to her tool shed. Do go and have a look and book on the Visitors Day, certainly to start off with. You'll find it absolutely amazing. And come and join us at Creatives as well, because we have lots of lovely creatives in our networking group, like Jodie, and you can get your hands on some of her free tools at our networking meetings, and mix with other creative professionals to help you think outside of yourself and give you permission to have those wacky ideas, you know. And we're creatives. We love wacky ideas, you know, and we love, you know, you can't tell a creative you can't do something, because yes, you can. And we'll give you all sorts of random other creative weirdo stuff that will actually help you create something amazing. So do come and chat to us. Do come and follow Jodie. But for now, I'd like to say huge thank you to Jodie for giving us the time on the couch today. A massive thank you to my co-host, Julie, as well. It's been a pleasure, always a pleasure to be on the couch with Julie. And thank you to our gorgeous viewers for joining us today. If you need to know anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out. But until next time, we'll see you.